What if I told you the dumbest ideas online aren't accidents, but evidence of something much darker? Why do millions share content that's flat out absurd, while deep, life-changing truths vanish in silence? From Tide Pod challenges to flat earth conspiracies, we laugh at the stupidity, but we also help it spread. And behind that laugh, something terrifying hides, a mindless system, and a mindless crowd, designed to reward nonsense. Nietzsche saw this coming long before the internet existed. He warned that when the herd takes over, truth becomes dangerous, and stupidity becomes sacred. This isn't just about bad trends. It's about how your brain gets hijacked. How algorithms manipulate your emotions. How society secretly punishes intelligence, and celebrates conformity. And worst of all, how easy it is to become part of it, without even noticing. In this video, you'll discover the psychological traps that make dumb ideas go viral. And Nietzsche's blueprint for thinking independently, even when the world calls you crazy. So the only question is, are you ready to unplug from the herd? You've seen it happen. A video of someone eating laundry detergent racks up millions of views. A celebrity says the earth is flat, and suddenly it's a trend. Meanwhile, the voices trying to share something thoughtful. Silenced by the algorithm. It feels like a joke, but the punchline is society itself. The rise of viral stupidity isn't just a glitch in the system. It's a mirror reflecting something deeper, something Nietzsche saw long before hashtags existed. He warned that the masses would always lean toward comfort and conformity over depth and truth. And here we are, watching idiocy go mainstream. Now, let's be clear, this isn't just about internet challenges or conspiracy theories. It's about a cultural shift. We live in a time where being loud is more important than being right. Where attention is currency, and the fastest way to earn it is through spectacle. Our brains are being rewired for entertainment, not understanding. And the dumbest ideas? They're easy. They're quick. They don't ask you to think. They offer relief from complexity, and that's why they spread like wildfire. Think of it this way, stupidity has become a kind of social glue. When an idea is absurd but popular, it creates a shared joke, a tribal language. It gives people something to belong to, no thinking required. And in a world that increasingly feels chaotic and uncertain, these collective absurdities offer a strange kind of comfort. A feeling of, at least I'm not alone. But Nietzsche would argue, if everyone's laughing, maybe the joke is on us. What makes this even more terrifying is that we've normalized it. We laugh, we scroll, we share, and we don't realize we're part of the machine. That's the danger of viral stupidity, it doesn't just entertain, it infects. And the infection spreads through repetition, through visibility, through dopamine. It becomes the background noise of our lives. But behind the noise, something much darker is brewing. Nietzsche didn't hate people, he hated what people become when they stop thinking for themselves. His concept of herd morality wasn't just a critique of blind obedience, it was a warning. When individuals dissolve into the crowd, truth becomes a threat. Anything that challenges the group's comfort is seen as dangerous. So what happens? Dumb ideas flourish because they're safe. They're familiar. They don't ruffle feathers. Meanwhile, real insight, the kind that forces you to confront yourself, is treated like an attack. Imagine you walk into a room full of people laughing at a ridiculous idea. You raise your hand and calmly question it. What happens? Silence. Then discomfort. Then pushback. You're not seen as thoughtful, you're seen as difficult. Nietzsche knew that the crowd doesn't crave truth, it craves affirmation. It wants to feel good about itself. And any idea that makes people think too hard, or feel too small, is rejected not on its merit, but on its emotional impact. That's the twisted genius of herd morality, it doesn't fight against truth with logic, it smothers it with popularity. When stupidity becomes the shared belief, intelligence feels like rebellion. And rebellion, to the herd, is a sin. This is why deep truths go ignored, not because they're false, but because they demand something the crowd doesn't want to give: effort, reflection, responsibility. And let's be honest, viral nonsense asks none of that. It gives you belonging without the burden of thought. But here's the real trap: once the herd decides what's acceptable, even the wise start second-guessing themselves. The pressure to conform isn't just external, it seeps into your own judgment. That's why Nietzsche admired solitude. It's the only place where your thoughts can breathe without needing permission. But solitude is hard, and ease is addictive. And your brain, believe it or not, is wired to seek that ease at all costs. Let me tell you something uncomfortable: your brain is lazy. Not in a bad way, in a survival way. It craves shortcuts. Patterns. Familiarity. This is what psychologists call cognitive ease. It means we're more likely to believe, accept, and share information that feels easy to process, even if it's wrong. That's why slogans work. That's why clichés survive. And that's exactly why dumb ideas go viral. They're easy. Digestible. They don't ask for your analysis, they reward your autopilot. Now, here's where it gets tricky. Because when something is easy to understand, your brain feels good. It interprets that feeling as truth. Not because the idea is valid, but because it didn't make you sweat to grasp it. Nietzsche didn't have fMRI machines, but he understood this instinct. He knew we're drawn to simplicity, not because it's wise, but because it's comfortable. And in a society where scrolling is the default, discomfort is the enemy. So we scroll past nuance and stop for nonsense. Think of a meme. One sentence. One joke. Millions of shares. No context, no questioning, just. Ha. That's true. But is it? Probably not. Yet, your brain treats it like gospel because it didn't challenge you. Meanwhile, a thoughtful article or a complex idea gets ignored, not because it's boring, but because it demands something rare: attention. And attention, in the digital age, is constantly under siege. So let's be honest, the rise of stupidity online isn't just an accident. It's the path of least resistance. Algorithms push what feels good, not what is good. And we click, not because we're dumb, but because we're exhausted. But here's the kicker: once enough people click, well, suddenly the idea doesn't just feel easy, it looks popular. And that, my friend, is where social proof hijacks your judgment entirely. Picture this: you're scrolling, and you see a post with 1.2 million likes. You pause. Before you even think, do I agree with this, something inside you whispers, well, everyone else does. That's social proof at work. It's the psychological tendency to assume that if many people believe something, it must be true. It's ancient, born from survival in tribes, but in the digital age, it's weaponized. And the result? Dumb ideas gain power not because they're smart, but because they're loud and popular. Social proof doesn't ask, is this true? It asks, am I alone in thinking otherwise? And no one wants to be the outcast. Nietzsche understood this danger. When we outsource our beliefs to the crowd, we stop thinking. We trade truth for belonging. The more an idea spreads, the more our brain takes a shortcut: this must be right. Look how many agree. But here's the trap: what goes viral is often crafted not for truth, but for attention. And attention favors shock, not substance. Think about the flat earth theory. Rationally absurd, right? But once a few influencers endorse it and the algorithm detects engagement, boom. It snowballs. Suddenly, it's not about facts anymore. It's about tribe. It's about identity. Believing becomes a form of rebellion, a badge of belonging. And questioning it? That makes you the fool. That's the terrifying part: when belief becomes less about logic and more about feeling part of something, the dumbest ideas can become the most offended. So next time you see a viral post, ask yourself, is this resonating with truth, or with my need to fit in? Because once you realize how social proof works, you see the strings. You notice how quickly emotion replaces reason. And speaking of emotion, there's something even deeper driving our rejection of intelligence, something Nietzsche called Ressentiment. Ever notice how we call smart people pretentious or out of touch? How thinking deeply is seen as elitist, while ignorance is branded as relatable. That's not random. That's ressentiment, a concept Nietzsche used to describe the emotional revenge of the powerless against those they secretly envy. When people feel small or inadequate, instead of confronting their discomfort, they turn against the thing that exposed it. Intelligence, in that light, becomes not a virtue, but a threat. It's easier to mock what you don't understand than to admit you don't understand it. Ressentiment twists admiration into bitterness. We don't just dislike those who challenge us intellectually, we want to tear them down. Why? Because their clarity reminds us of our confusion. Their discipline reflects our distraction. Their independence exposes our need for approval. And instead of rising to meet that standard, we lower it. We make stupidity fashionable, and wisdom something to be ashamed of. Now, imagine that resentment amplified by millions, spread through likes, retweets, and viral memes. That's our digital world. Platforms don't reward nuance, they reward outrage. And ressentiment thrives in outrage. It's the fuel behind cancel culture, troll culture, and anti-intellectualism. We ridicule what we fear. We attack what makes us feel inferior. And so, we elevate shallow content while dismissing depth as boring or irrelevant. It's not a lack of intelligence, it's a defense mechanism. Nietzsche saw this as a moral inversion. A world where weakness disguises itself as virtue, and strength is demonized. And in that world, stupidity isn't just tolerated, it's celebrated. Because it's safe. It's easy. And most importantly, it doesn't make anyone feel small. But what if I told you there's a system designed to feed this exact emotional loop? A machine that thrives on your anger, your tribalism, your clicks, and it has no conscience. Let's pull back the curtain. Behind every viral post, every trending video, there's a machine. A silent, tireless algorithm scanning your clicks, your pauses, your reactions. And it doesn't care about truth. It doesn't care about wisdom. It cares about one thing only, engagement. The stronger the emotional response, outrage, shock, laughter, tribal validation, the more it amplifies the content. Facts don't trend. Feelings do. And that's exactly how dumb, dangerous ideas get rewarded in today's digital cult. Think about it, when was the last time a well-researched, balanced argument popped up on your feed and went viral? Rare, right? But a sarcastic meme? A hot take dripping with indignation? That spreads in seconds. Why? Because emotion bypasses your rational brain. It hijacks your attention. It compels you to react. And algorithms, like Nietzsche's will to power, don't aim for truth, they aim to dominate your attention. And in doing so, they reshape what you see, what you believe, and ultimately, who you become. Here's the scary part, this isn't accidental. The platforms are designed to keep you hooked. To trigger you. To radicalize your curiosity into loyalty. Every scroll teaches the algorithm more about what gets a rise out of you. And over time, you're not just consuming content, you're being trained. Trained to feel first, think later. Trained to value speed over depth. Noise over silence. Reaction over reflection. And as Nietzsche warned, when the instinct of the herd takes over, the individual loses his edge. So now we find ourselves in a new kind of religion. One with no gods, just trending topics. No priests, just influencers. No sermons, just viral loops of dopamine and distraction. But the consequences are real. Because in this digital faith, madness is no longer the exception, it's the new norm. And that brings us to one of Nietzsche's most chilling insights. Nietzsche once wrote, "Madness is rare in individuals, but in groups, parties, nations, and epochs, it is the rule." And when you look around today, it's hard to argue with him. What once passed for collective wisdom has turned into collective hysteria. From online mobs to viral delusions, the crowd doesn't think, it reacts. It doesn't analyze, it obeys. And in that obedience, truth disappears. Not because no one knows it, but because no one dares to say it. Group madness starts subtly. One person says something outrageous. Another repeats it. A few more share it. Then suddenly, questioning it feels like blasphemy. It's not just wrong, it's dangerous. That's the terrifying thing about herd psychology: the moment the group adopts a belief, reality bends around it. And once madness is normalized, sanity starts looking suspicious. Nietzsche saw this in religious dogma, in nationalism, in mob justice. Today, we see it in cancel culture, conspiracy theories, and influencer cults. The internet, with all its power, has only accelerated this. What used to take years to spread now takes seconds. We've compressed history into trending cycles. One day, it's a dance. The next, it's mass hysteria. And in all of it, we confuse volume for truth. If enough people scream it, it must be real, right? But truth doesn't need volume. It needs courage. And courage is hard to find in a group that punishes dissent. So here's the question: if madness is the rule in groups, where do the sane go? How do the few who still value thinking survive? Nietzsche's answer was radical: you step away. You become the outsider. The free spirit. But that path is lonely. And it raises another difficult question: in a world so addicted to noise and spectacle, is there still room for deep truths? Speak in whispers, and we live in an age of shouting. The digital world doesn't reward nuance. It rewards immediacy. Algorithms don't surface wisdom, they surface whatever keeps your thumb moving. And so, deep insights, the kind that require silence, time, and self-reflection, get buried under a pile of noise. Not because they aren't valuable, but because they aren't profitable. And Nietzsche warned, when culture becomes entertainment, truth becomes background static. Think about it. Profound ideas take effort. They demand that you slow down, reflect, maybe even feel discomfort. And in a world designed to overstimulate and distract, discomfort is a liability. Why wrestle with a hard truth when you can just scroll to the next dopamine hit? That's the trap. Not only do we ignore deep truths, we become conditioned to avoid them. The more we escape into the comfort of fast content, the more allergic we become to anything that resembles depth. And the irony? We crave meaning more than ever. People are anxious, burned out, directionless. But when the cure, real philosophy, critical thought, psychological honesty, shows up, it's dismissed as boring or too heavy. We want clarity, but not the cost that comes with it. We want freedom, but not the responsibility of facing truth. That's why dumb ideas flourish: they promise transformation without confrontation. Meanwhile, real truth waits, quietly, for those brave enough to sit with it. But here's the good news: you don't need permission to choose differently. You can step away from the scroll. You can seek the ideas that don't go viral, because they go deeper. You can become the person who hears what others have tuned out. But to do that, you have to go against the herd. Against the trend. And Nietzsche believed that only a few have the strength to walk that path. You don't need to live like everyone else. You really don't. But escaping the herd, in today's world, takes more than willpower. It takes strategy. Nietzsche called this path one of becoming the Übermensch, not a superhero, but a person who creates their own values instead of adopting the crowd's. In modern terms, it means disconnecting from the noise, questioning the default, and thinking dangerously for yourself. That's not rebellion for show. It's rebellion for survival. Start small. Observe before reacting. Think before reposting. Read ideas that challenge you, not just confirm what you already believe. Have conversations that make you uncomfortable, not because they're toxic, but because they stretch your understanding. That's how freedom begins, not with a dramatic exit from society, but with a quiet refusal to let your mind be colonized. Nietzsche didn't preach escape from life. He preached escape from herd life, the unthinking, automatic existence. But make no mistake, the herd will resist. It always does. You'll be called arrogant, detached, even dangerous, not because you're wrong, but because you're free. That's the curse of the independent thinker: you'll often be misunderstood. But it's also the blessing. Because once you stop needing validation from the crowd, you become untouchable. And with that comes a clarity few ever experience. A kind of quiet, steady fire that guides your decisions no matter how loud the world gets. So, are you ready for that kind of solitude? That kind of mental sovereignty. Because it's not just a mindset, it's a way of living. One built on responsibility, reflection, and yes, risk. But Nietzsche's final challenge still stands: will you be part of the echo, or will you become the voice? Because when everyone else is running in circles, there's power in standing still, and thinking. Nietzsche didn't beg you to think, he dared you to. He knew the weight that came with true thought. It isolates. It exposes. It demands that you live without the crutches of certainty and group approval. That's why his final warning isn't poetic, it's brutal: will you think, or will you obey? Because in a world where blind obedience is rewarded, thinking becomes a radical act. A dangerous act. But also, the most human act of all. Obedience is easy. It comes dressed as safety. As belonging. As harmony. You just follow the rules, say what's popular, believe what everyone else believes, and you're accepted. But Nietzsche saw this as death in slow motion. The death of the self. The death of potential. He believed that obeying the herd may protect you from rejection, but it costs you your soul. Because the longer you pretend to be someone else, the harder it is to remember who you really are. Thinking, on the other hand, is messy. It leads to contradictions, isolation, hard questions with no easy answers. It makes you doubt your past, reevaluate your values, sometimes even rebuild your entire identity. But that's where freedom begins, not in comfort, but in confrontation. That's the journey Nietzsche invites you to take. A path with no applause, no trending tags, no algorithm pushing you forward. Just your own will. Your own mind. Your own truth. So here you are, on the edge. The question's in front of you. The herd is loud, the algorithm is seductive, and comfort is always one tap away. But deep down, you already know, there's something hollow in obedience. And something electrifying in clarity. So what will it be? Obey the noise, or own your mind? So now you know. Dumb ideas don't just go viral by chance, they thrive because they're easy, emotional, and safe. And in a world run by algorithms and crowd approval, that's a deadly combination. Nietzsche's warning wasn't just philosophical. It was personal. He knew that if you don't choose to think, the world will think for you. And what it chooses won't be truth, it will be comfort. Distraction. Control. The question isn't whether you're smart enough to escape it. It's whether you're brave enough. Are you willing to question the popular? To resist the urge to conform? To embrace the discomfort of clarity, while the crowd celebrates confusion? Because real freedom isn't found in being liked. It's found in being awake. If this message struck something inside you, don't keep it to yourself. Share it. Let others feel the tension, the challenge, the invitation. And if you're ready for more like this, subscribe to the channel, tap the bell, and join a community that chooses depth over noise. Because the herd is loud. But the thinkers? We move quietly, and intentionally.